All right, guys, here's our last two chapters. Chapter 23, Company. Bat found that he didn't have much of an appetite either, so after he'd pushed his eggs around his plate for a while, Mom drove him to school. It turned out that everyone there had heard about what had happened at the play, too. From the moment Bat got out of the car, questions followed him. Bat, did you really take your skunk to the play? Bat, is it true that the auditorium has to be shut down for the whole week? Bat, can you really train a skunk to spray on purpose? Everybody calm down, Mr. Grayson said from the front of the class. Bat wished he could disappear. He wished he didn't have skin for people to look at or ears for people to talk into. Mr. Grayson must have assigned something for the class to do because all around the room kids were ruffling through their desks and flipping open books. Bat, Mr. Grayson said, keep kneeling beside Bat's desk. What can I do to help you? Bat shook his head. He didn't have any words. He shook his head more, and then he shook it harder and harder, and he just kept shaking it. Bat, Mr. Grayson said. But Bat shook his head on, like a pendulum of a clock, back and forth, left and right, left and right, left and right. And Mr. Grayson stayed right there, kneeling next to Bat's desk, his hand on Bat's shoulder. Finally, Bat felt better. His throat felt normal again, and it didn't bother him so much that he had skin and ears. Mr. Grayson squeezed his shoulder one more time and then stood up. I think, he said to Bat, that Baby Cakes could use some cuddles. Are you the man for the job? There in his enclosure was Baby Cakes, ears flopping, nose twitching. Bat sat cross-legged and held out one of the apple slices Mr. Grayson had given him. He had watched Mr. Grayson take the apple out of his own lunch sack, which he kept in his orange satchel next to his big desk at the front of the room, and cut it up with a pocket knife. Baby Cakes hopped over to Bat and sniffed the apple slice before accepting it. Once she had happily started chewing, Bat lifted her up and tucked her into the space between his crossed legs. Fun fact, we found out yesterday that my dog, my Chiweenie, Max, likes apple slices. He ate half of an apple slice yesterday and really enjoyed it. Apples are very good for dogs. They have good vitamins for them. Behind him, class went on. They were talking about a book they'd been reading about a girl with magical powers that allowed her to pause time and fix past mistakes, which at the moment sounded wonderful to Bat, even though he had read the book too and knew that every time the girl fixed one mistake, 3 more popped up in its place. Bat wondered if new, different mistakes would be better than the mistakes he had made. Taking Thor to the play, ruining Janie's big night, and not knowing how to be a better friend to Israel. Maybe not being his friend anymore at all. Do you want some company? Bat looked up. It was Israel. I have company, Bat said, petting Baby Cakes. Israel sighed. I know, he said. I meant human company. Oh, said Bat. Yes, actually, I would like your company. This made Israel smile. He climbed into the enclosure and sat down next to Bat. We have a picture. He leaned over and scratched Baby Cakes between the ears, just the way he liked. They sat quietly together for a while. Then Bat said all at once, Are you still mad at me? A little, said Israel. Not really. If you're still mad at me, even a little, then why are you being my company? Because, said Israel, you're my best friend, right? Bat's eyes began to sting a little needle pricks. You know how you get that feeling like you're gonna cry, but you don't want to cry? Yes, he said, but he looked down at Baby Cake's fluffy Angora fur and her sideways ears, not up at Israel. Best friends need to stick together, Israel said. He reached over and pet Baby Cakes, his fingers disappearing into the soft white fur. Then he said, Bat, I have an idea for how you can apologize to Janie. Chapter 24, Take 2. Yep, this is our last chapter. Apologizing was not something that Bat was very good at. Also, it was something he didn't have very much practice doing. Usually, apologies didn't do anything, and that was the problem with them. An apology is just words. That's true. But Bat especially hated it when people tried to force an apology for something, because no one can make someone sorry, and no one believes an apology that is forced. Remember, I've told you that many times in class. I only want you to apologize if you truly feel the apology in your heart. That just apologizing for something and not meaning it is pointless. You need to actually understand and feel why what you did might have hurt someone else. Mr. Grayson didn't believe in making people apologize. I can't make you sorry, he was fond of saying. Words are cheap. That's something else he was fond of saying. What we do is more important than what we say. That was another Mr. Grayson special, and he liked to call this one his favorite saying. And Bat agreed with Mr. Grayson. Doing something meant more than saying something. So if Bat was going to apologize to Janie, it was going to be an active apology. Lucky for Bat, he had a friend who was very good at doing things. Better than Bat was, Bat admitted to himself. Bat liked to be good at things. He liked to be an expert. And to be an expert, you have to learn from experts. When Bat wanted to learn more about the care and feeding of skunks, he'd gone straight to the world skunk expert. Remember him? Dr. Jerry Drago? I'm an expert at apologizing, Israel assured him, because I'm an expert at making mistakes. This weekend was an every other weekend, so Dad picked Bat up after school. Normally they would have picked Janie up next, but Dad told Bat that Janie would be spending the afternoon with one of her friends. The first thing Bat asked Dad before he even got into Dad's little car was, "Can you take me over to Israel's house after breakfast tomorrow? He and I have a project we need to work on." "A school project?" Dad asked. "No," said Bat. "A secret project." On Sunday evening at 5 o'clock, everything was ready. Bat and Israel had set up 2 rows of chairs in Israel's backyard. Israel's mom had lined the walkway with clay bowls, each filled with water and topped with a floating candle. The night before, Dad had helped Bat find the phone numbers for Frida and Karina and Maggie, and Bat had called them all. "I know I messed up your play," he told each of them, "and I want to make it up to Janie. Will you come over to my friend Israel's house at 5 o'clock on Sunday night?" Mom was there with Janie's favorite brownies, just like Bat had asked. Soon Israel's yard was full of people. Even Lawrence came, wearing his blue scrubs again. "Sorry, Bat, I didn't have time to change." "That's all right," Bat told him. "You look more like yourself this way." Lawrence laughed his wonderful laugh. His laugh was one of Bat's very favorite sounds in the world. Finally, Bat heard the honk of Dad's car from the front of the house. "Janie's here," Bat announced, running up the pathway to the front of the yard. His heart beat as if he'd run all the way around the block, and his arms folded into his excited flapping motion. Tom went to the front door and let Dad and Janie in, and a minute later he led them to the back door and into the yard. Janie's eyebrows shot up, and her mouth opened in a surprised O as she stepped onto the grass. So here is where we would stop normally, and we would make predictions. So have you already made your prediction about what's going to happen? Bat saw her seeing the people in the rows of chairs, the glowing, floating candles along the path, and in the front of the garden shed where Israel's mom made her pottery, a little stage had been set up with a curtain hanging as a backdrop, and Mr. Grayson sitting off to the side with his keyboard ready to play. "What is all this?" Janie asked Dad, who was at her side. "Ask Bat," Dad said, nodding in Bat's direction. Janie's arms began to fold across her chest, like she was remembering that she was still mad, but then they loosened and dropped to her side. "Bat," she said, walking over to him, "what's going on?" "I'm sorry I brought Thor to your show, and I'm sorry that he sprayed," Bat said. He noticed that Janie was wearing sandals and that she had painted her toenails dark blue. There were little stars painted on the big toes. He talked to the painted stars. So he looked down at the stars and fixated on them so he didn't have to look at her. "You're a really great singer," Bat said. "You will sing your solo again. Mr. Grayson can play the music." For a second, that felt like a minute. Janie didn't say anything. Then she put her hand under Bat's chin and raised up his face so that she could look into his eyes. Bat didn't love looking into people's eyes, but he knew that Janie really liked to, and he remembered what Mom had told him about, do you guys remember? how some people learn things about each other from their eyes. So even though it wasn't Bat's favorite thing to do, he stared right into Janie's eyes, which were almost exactly like his own. Bat realized. A brown so dark it was almost black and shiny. Maybe Janie saw something in his eyes that let her know that he really was sorry, or maybe she just liked the candles and the stage because she smiled and gave Bat a hug, which he did like. The press of her arms, the smell of her apple shampoo. "Oh, Bat," she said, "the school is going to redo the play next weekend, after the auditorium has aired out. But this was really nice of you to set up, and anyway, the whole thing was pretty funny, when you think about it." She dropped her voice to a whisper. "Also, I didn't mean it when I said that I wished Mom had never brought Thor home. I'm sorry I said that." She let him out of her hug and said to the audience, "Hi, everybody. Thank you for coming." And then everyone began to clap for Janie, her friends and Bat's friends and their family and Mr. Grayson. And then Janie walked up to the little stage and she nodded at Mr. Grayson to start playing. Bat sat down next to Israel, who had saved a seat for him. Then he pulled something out of his pocket to show to Israel. Do you guys know what it was? Think about it. The clay skunk Israel had made for him. "Hey," Israel whispered. "You're carrying it. That's so cool." Bat grinned and rubbed his fingers along the clay lump, memorizing the way the words from Israel felt against his thumb. Thor wasn't with him, but Bat felt a sweet warmth in his chest, almost as if the skunk kit was cuddled up there. Janie started to sing, surprising Bat all over again with her strong, clear voice. It was beautiful. The evening was beautiful. The rows of chairs were beautiful. The people in them were beautiful. The floating candles were beautiful. The lump of clay in Bat's hand was beautiful. Right now, the whole world felt giant and open and full of beautiful things, and Bat was happy. So I think there's a third book, and if I can get my hands on it, then I don't know if we'll have time at the end of the year to start it. If not, then whoever is your teacher next year for 4th grade, maybe you guys can start the year off with the third book. Love you, and I will see you after spring break.